world's biggest serial killer might never have been caught if he knew how to use a computer. Imagine a person committing serial killings who is also a friend of his own victim, a well-known name in the city, and on top of that, a doctor. This is the amazing story of Dr. Harold Shipman, who used his clinic not to save lives but to take lives. In a small town named Hyde in England, where only 30,000 people reside, he carried out serial killings right under everyone's noses for 23 years. Even after putting more than 250 people to death, no one suspected Dr. Harold Shipman, and perhaps no one ever would have if he hadn't made a small mistake. What was the reason for killing people? Why wasn't he caught for so long, and what clue did the police find that exposed the years of killings in an instant? Viewers, Dr. Harold Shipman used to run his clinic in a small town called Hyde near Manchester in England. The total population there was around 30,000, and out of that 3,000 people were patients of Dr. Shipman. The doctor mostly targeted patients who lived alone and were quite old, so that no one would doubt their death. Dr. Shipman gave these patients as much time as possible, even visiting their homes. He listened to their conversation to lighten the burden on their hearts, making them feel that even though they were alone, Dr. Shipman was there to listen to everything they had to say. Some patients trusted Dr. Shipman so much that they had even given him the keys to their homes. Because of this behavior, he had become quite famous in Hyde because people thought that Dr. Shipman treated the elderly just through conversation. Under the cover of all this, Dr. Shipman would casually extract all their details, like who is alone at what time, how much wealth and property they have, who comes to the house, and where their relatives live. Once Dr. Shipman was satisfied, he would kill his patient by giving them an overdose of medicine. Now, because the patients were already over 80 years old, no one suspected their deaths. For many years this continued. Not only was he not caught, but no one even suspected him until he himself made a mistake. Dr. Shipman started his career in a town called Pontefract, which is 70 kilometers from Hyde, where he worked in a hospital. Then, in 1974, he left Pontefract and went to Todmorden, where he took on the position of a general practitioner at the Abraham and Murad Medical Center. During the job here, he was caught prescribing a higher quantity of a drug called pethidine to some patients, which he actually used himself. Pethidine is actually a painkiller, but it is quite an addictive medicine. Dr. Shipman was addicted to pethidine and deliberately prescribed it to his patients, giving them a little while using the larger amount himself. Even though the patients did not really need this medicine, what happened was that after taking it, the patients felt very good, while they were actually unaware that they were getting addicted. This was the reason that Shipman's patients were attracted to him without wanting to be. After being caught, the hospital administration dismissed Dr. Shipman, and later it reached the cancellation of his license. But Shipman paid a fine of £600 to get himself admitted to a rehabilitation center, which saved his license from being cancelled. After spending a short time at the rehab center, when everyone forgot about him, he came to Hyde in 1977, where he became a general practitioner at Donnybrook Medical Center. In the 1980s, he continued practicing in the GP position, and during this time, he neither quit drugs nor stopped finding opportunities to kill elderly patients. However, the frequency of these murders increased significantly from 1993 when he opened his own clinic in Hyde and made a good name for himself in the city. This continued for many years, and no one suspected the doctor's actions. For the first time in March 1998, Dr. Linda Reynolds, who worked at Brook Surgery, the hospital opposite Shipman's clinic, expressed concern about the higher death ratio among Shipman's patients. Their statement was that Shipman, who runs just a small clinic, in the past 3 months his 16 patients have died, whereas during the same period, Brook Surgery, which has 3 times more patients than Shipman's clinic, only had 14 patient deaths. This suspicion further increased when it was discovered that after the deaths of all 16 of Dr. Shipman's patients, they were cremated and not buried. It is worth mentioning here that most Christian people bury their loved ones after death, only a few choose cremation. Dr. Linda expressed her suspicion in the form of a report to the Manchester coroner, which included all these details and also stated that most of Dr. Shipman's 16 patients were elderly women who were found dead in their homes, and it cannot always be a coincidence that most of these patients died while Dr. Shipman was alone in their homes. Dr. Linda stated that deaths at home due to illness usually occur in bed, but Dr. Shipman's patients die in a strange way sitting on a chair in well-dressed clothes. And secondly, either Dr. Shipman was at their home at that time, or for the first time he went to the house and found the patient dead, which cannot be normal in any way. An investigation was also conducted based on this report, but the police did not find any solid evidence against Dr. Shipman, and after 1 month this investigation was closed. When Dr. Harold Shipman's patients died, he would sign the Form B himself. Form B is the form that the doctor treating the patient needs to sign, in which they write the cause of death. But the problem was that Form C, which needed to be signed by another doctor, was also in most cases signed by Shipman's doctor friends or those who did not suspect him. In this way, Shipman would write fictitious information on his patients' death certificates and send them for cremation without anyone suspecting anything. Due to this process, many deaths remained uninvestigated, and this was why Shipman easily hid his murders. After the investigation was closed, Shipman also put 3 more people to death, but the time to get caught was not far. Shipman's last victim was Hyde's former mayor, 81-year-old Kathleen Grundy, who died in her home on June 24, 1998. And here too, Dr. Shipman was the last person who saw Kathleen alive. Later, he signed the death certificate and listed the cause of death as old age. Kathleen's daughter, Angela Woodruff, who was a lawyer herself, became suspicious of her mother's mysterious death when she received a will from her mother that bequeathed her house to Dr. Shipman. Dr. Shipman was quite close to the family, and receiving the house in the will was not the basis for suspicion. Rather, Angela was suspicious because her mother had 2 houses, while the will only mentioned 1 house. This indicated that the will was written by someone who did not know about the second house, and that was Dr. Shipman. Angela Woodruff went to the police, who reopened the investigation. Kathleen Grundy's body was exhumed and sent for autopsy, and it was found that her body had high traces of diacetylmorphine, meaning heroin. When the police asked Dr. Shipman, he claimed that Grundy was addicted to heroin and said he had recorded this on his computer before treating her. Dr. Shipman had recently started making entries in the computerized medical journal, but he didn't know that he had entered the date before death, and the last edit date of the file is automatically saved in the computer. When the police checked the entries in this computer, it was found that Shipman made the entry after Kathleen's death. This evidence alone was not enough to arrest Shipman, but the police also found the typewriter that was used to write the fake will. It was discovered because some characters on Shipman's typewriter were damaged, and the exact same characters were also in Grundy's will. On the 7th of September 1998, the police arrested Hyde's well-known doctor, Harold Shipman. When this came to light, those people also came forward whose loved ones had been killed by Shipman earlier. They had suspicions but could not raise their voice against the well-known doctor of the city. The police investigated 15 other patients who had recently died at the hands of Shipman. A specific pattern was observed in all cases where the patient was given a lethal dose of dimorphine. He signed the death certificate himself and wrote old age as the cause of death. Shipman himself also provided the authorization for cremation so that all evidence would be destroyed after burning. During the Shipman inquiry, all the cases of patients who died under Shipman's care were reviewed. The inquiry team investigated all the documents, death certificates, and medical records handled by Shipman. In addition, interviews were conducted with the families of those whose relatives were patients of Shipman, and some bodies were exhumed for forensic postmortems. This process was very detailed, and it was discovered that Shipman killed a total of 218 patients from 1975 until he was caught. This is the confirmed number, but in many cases, due to a lack of evidence, they were not confirmed. It is estimated that this number could even be up to 260. The court sentenced Shipman to death 15 times for 15 counts of murder, meaning he will never come out of prison as long as he is alive. In 2004, he hanged himself with a bedsheet tied to his cell bars. After his death, a fellow inmate revealed the astonishing fact that Shipman had actually killed not 218 or 260 but 508 people, and Shipman had told him this himself. The real reason for Shipman's numerous killings has never been revealed. Some people call him a psycho, some see it as a way of making money, and some understand it as the impact of Shipman's mother's death. Because his mother, who was a cancer patient, was given morphine as a painkiller. Experts believe that perhaps Shipman wanted to see his patients die by giving them morphine in the same way. We hope you will like and share this video